Good morning, everyone. Virgo here. It is September 23rd, 2019. Happy Monday to everyone, and I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at in this video, or the main thing we're going to be looking at in this video, is a question that I have gotten from many of you. We're going to be taking a look at the charges that are on the Sharon Tracy Gale Bay docket. And we're going to be looking at what realistically could end up being the actual sentence that Sharon Tracy Gale actually might receive should she be found guilty of these charges. Now, I need to make sure that you guys are aware, I think most of you are, that I am not an attorney for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I am not an attorney anywhere else either. But what I did do after doing a lot of research with regards to these questions is contact two attorneys who are attorneys in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to get a very realistic look at what we could potentially be looking at if Sharon Tracy Gale is actually found guilty. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at each individual offense. But before we do that, I want to have you guys take a look at a couple of things. So we're going to go over here to the charges, all right, because that's primarily what we're discussing in this video. So the charges that we're actually looking at here, we're going to start up here with number 1, which is risking catastrophe. Risking catastrophe. There we go. So this risking catastrophe charge, let's talk about that for a minute. First of all, you will notice that this is under the grade F3. That means felony 3. And that kind of gives us an indication as to the time frame that the prosecutors or the state will normally ask for with regards to this sort of offense. But first, let's look at what the actual offense is. I probably don't have to say this at this point to you guys, but if you would like to take a look at the actual state laws that I'm getting this information from, it will be linked in the description of this video. So we are now looking at causing or risking a catastrophe. This is law number 3302. We're going to be looking at B because she was charged with risking catastrophe. Risking catastrophe is when a person is guilty of a felony of the 3rd degree if he recklessly creates a risk of catastrophe in the employment of fire, explosives, or other dangerous means listed in subsection A of this section. Now let's talk about that for just a moment. All right, so we know from the footage that was provided to us by the news channel that's local, who went in and actually took pictures and everything of the car batteries that were daisy chained together and attached to a propane tank and a generator. We know from the electricians, who are the master electricians that have come out and said that this specific scenario could have actually blown up an entire city block and everybody on that street. So in terms of it actually being a true risking catastrophe charge, there is absolutely positively proof that the police department collected to show that there was a risk of catastrophe. This risking catastrophe charge could bring about 3.5 to 7 years of actual jail time. So keep that in mind. Now, there's only one risking catastrophe charge specifically on Sharon Tracy Gale Bay. Sharon Tracy Gale, rather, that's her actual real full name. Secondarily, though, there is the conspiracy to risking catastrophe. What that means is, of course, most of you are aware that conspiracy is 2 or more people who purposefully, knowingly put together something like those crazy daisy-chained batteries, full well knowing that it's a dangerous scenario, and thereby going about doing it anyway. So there's also a charge that is another felony in the 3rd degree for conspiracy of risking a catastrophe. All right, so again, we're talking about 3.5 to 7 years for each felony in the third degree that we see on this docket. There are a total of 7. All right. All right, so we're going on to the next thing. One of the things that I want to make mention here is that you're going to notice that there are felonies in the third degrees for endangering welfare of children, and you'll notice that they're there 3 times. You'll also notice that there is conspiracy of endangering welfare of children as a parent or guardian, and that is there 3 times. Now, the reason behind that is because there were 3 children under the age of 18 that were in the home at the time that these batteries were daisy chained together and attached to a propane tank and a generator, thereby endangering their welfare based around the fact that they had a dangerous explosive device in the basement of their home for God only knows how long, that was there for the purpose of generating electricity because the electricity had been turned off due to failure to pay their bill. So let's go over and actually take a look at that specific offense. Okay, so here we have, this is a grading that is done, of course, and this has to do with an offense of a felony of the third degree if the actor engaged in a course of conduct of endangering the welfare of a child. The offense constitutes a felony of the third degree. All right, so that is what is actually in the Title 18 for Pennsylvania, law number 4304, endangering the welfare of children. You'll notice that that's on there 3 different times, thereby again inciting that same time frame of 3.5 to 7 years. So potentially what we're looking at is 7 different felonies in the third degree. They could each potentially bring 3.5 to 7 years. And we are looking at a total of 7 misdemeanors in the second degree, which potentially could bring 1 to 2 years. All right. But that's not generally the way that the state does it. The state generally will run things concurrently and then pick up the back end with some form of probation or restitution or maybe both. So we need to look at this as though right now we're just looking at the actual offenses. We are not talking about, we're not adding up time because realistically, there's no way that Sharon's going to get 40 some odd years for this stuff. And if you added it all up and did not have it running together in any way, shape, or form, that's what we'd be looking at. And that's not going to happen. So next, we're going to look at the misdemeanors. So the Pennsylvania law 2705 covers recklessly endangering another person. A person commits a misdemeanor of the second degree if he recklessly endangers in conduct which places or may place another person in danger of death or serious bodily injury. Once again, there is viable, very good proof that that was done based on the footage that was taken. So we are looking at that particular charge in addition to conspiracy to recklessly endanger another person. Once again, 2 or more people knowingly acting together to daisy chain these batteries, full well knowing that it could be very dangerous. And as a result, they've not only endangered their own household, but they're also endangering other persons. It would actually be interesting to see whether each one of these individuals actually got charges because they were endangering the other person too. But I don't actually know that for a fact. It was just something that I questioned and am curious about. Regardless, we're talking again about a whole neighborhood that could potentially have gone up if even the slightest spark were near this contraption that they had put together. So this is a misdemeanor 2. And as I said, a misdemeanor 2 in the state of Pennsylvania can bring 1 to 2 years of prison time. Having said that, the court is clearly not taking this lightly. Now, many people have come on my channel and made claims, oh, well, these are light charges. Actually, they're not light charges. After speaking to the 2 attorneys, it's very obvious that particularly anything pertaining to risking catastrophe and endangering the welfare of children are absolutely not at all small, minor things. They're going to be looked at very seriously, and they were from the get-go, hence the actual bail amount that was set of originally $50,000. And in addition to that, that amount doubled when Sharon skipped bail to $100,000. They're not playing around. They're serious about this. Now, DeCorey Pitts, as we know, started out with a bail of $250,000. I'm going to be going over his case tomorrow so that we can take a look at his specific situation and what he might be looking at, being that previously he was a felon. So we also have the gun charge that had to do with that scenario, or the finding of a gun in which he was not supposed to have been around at all because of a previous gun felony charge. But currently we're looking at Sharon, and as I said, many people have made claims, even some attorneys, that, oh, this is not that big of a deal. Well, the 2 attorneys that I spoke to on Friday felt like this was a very big deal. Now, this may not be as much time as what people would like for it to be, especially those that are in the neighborhood who have been harassed by Sharon, making false claims that she can, take their homes and they need to pack up and leave their houses within 30 days and everything. A lot of people are really upset with Sharon for the way she's acted. But here's the bottom line. The majority of the time, the state is going to ask for a reasonable amount of jail time should Sharon be found guilty. Now remember, innocent until proven guilty. Even though we've seen that there's good evidence of that, Sharon still has all of her rights. And that means that she has to be proven guilty first. The chances of that are actually very good based on the information that the state's attorney's office has. Even without adding anything additional to this case, both of the attorneys that I spoke to concur that Sharon will probably receive a minimum of 3.5 years and a maximum of 10 years. Chances are somewhere in the middle of that is where she's going to fall. They also both felt like she'd receive at least 5 years of probation. Both felt that the chances of her getting just probation were slim to none, and both felt that these charges were all going to stand and none of them would be thrown out, mainly because a plea bargain has already been offered and Sharon, using her, well, we'll call it her paperwork, chose not to talk about a plea deal. So with that being said, that is what we're looking at currently. Of course, we're going to have to wait until the 15th of October to see whether all of this stands. These are all just legal best guesses, all right? But they are guesses from actual criminal attorneys who defend every day in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I think that they are probably right on. So, again, if you want to know what we're actually looking at for Sharon, we're probably looking at somewhere between 3.5 and 10 years. The guess would be somewhere between 5 and 7, conservatively, okay? With a probation time period of at least 5 years after that. Keep in mind that a misdemeanor 2 by itself can bring up to 10 years each of probation. So it just completely depends, to be perfectly honest, on the way she acts in court. And she really needs representation, but she's refusing that according to everything I've been able to find. I hope this helps to answer some questions for you guys. And please let me know if you've got any additional questions, put them in the comments, or you can always email me at virgotriad@protonmail.com. Thanks, you guys.